What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to On the Roll with Matt. Today, I want to talk about something that shows up in addictions, behaviors, habits, thought patterns, mental health, spirituality, and recovery. We make things way more complex and complicated than they need to be. And I say that as someone who will be 17 years sober this year. I still live one day at a time. I still surrender daily. I still have to leave yesterday behind me, not panic about tomorrow, and ask God for the strength to walk through today. Because sobriety is not just something I achieved years ago. Sobriety is something I maintain every single day. And when it comes to addiction, behaviors, and destructive processes, one of the biggest traps is this: we can overthink ourselves right back into captivity. We can analyze everything, explain everything, justify everything, intellectualize everything, and still never take the next right step. Sometimes complexity becomes a hiding place. Sometimes the addict brain says, well, I need to understand every detail before I change. But the truth is, a lot of recovery starts with something much simpler. Name it, surrender it, speak it out loud, get accountable, take the next right step, repeat. Now, I want to break this down from a behavioral health and psychology perspective, but I also want to talk about it spiritually because my higher power is God. That is my foundation. But whether your language is God, higher power, community, purpose, truth, or healing, the point is this: we were not created to stay chained to the same cycle forever. The cycle can be broken. Scientifically, addiction is not just bad choices. It is also not an excuse to avoid responsibility. It is both a brain process and a behavioral process. In the brain, neurons communicate through tiny connection points called synapses. Those synapses use chemical messengers to send signals. One of the major chemicals involved in addiction is dopamine. A lot of people think dopamine is just about pleasure, but it is also about motivation, attention, reward, and learning. Dopamine helps the brain remember what brought relief, escape, comfort, excitement, or numbness. So when a person uses a substance or repeats a destructive behavior or gets locked into a process addiction, the brain starts learning. It learns the cue, it learns the craving, it learns the behavior, it learns the reward. And the more that loop repeats, the stronger those pathways can become. That is called neuroplasticity. The brain changes based on what we repeatedly do. So if I keep running to the same behavior every time I feel pain, stress, loneliness, anger, boredom, shame, or fear, my brain starts connecting that feeling with that behavior. The synapses involved in that pattern can become stronger. The brain starts saying, "This is how we survive. This is how we cope. This is how we escape," even if the behavior is destroying us. That is why addiction can feel automatic. That is why someone can say, "I do not want to do this anymore," and still find themselves pulled back into the same cycle. That does not mean they are hopeless. It means the brain has been trained, and what has been trained can be retrained. That is where recovery comes in. That is where counseling comes in. That is where accountability comes in. That is where sponsors come in. That is where community comes in. That is where daily surrender comes in. Because the brain needs new pathways, new responses, new patterns, new habits, new people, new choices, new truth. And spiritually, I believe God can work through all of that. God can work through prayer. God can work through counseling. God can work through a sponsor. God can work through a support group. God can work through a hard conversation. God can work through a moment where you finally tell the truth and say, "I need help." One of the most dangerous things addiction does is convince us to isolate. It says, "Do not tell anyone." It says, "You can handle this yourself." It says, "You already messed up, so why try?" It says, "You are too far gone." It says, "You are different. Nobody will understand." And then we make it even more complicated. We start bargaining. "I will stop next week. I will slow down after this. I am not as bad as that person. I can still function. I just need the right moment. I need life to calm down first. I need to fix everything before I ask for help." But recovery does not begin when everything is perfect. Recovery begins when we stop running from the truth. And I know this from my own life. 17 years sober does not mean I am above the process. It means I respect the process. I still live one day at a time. I still have to surrender today, not yesterday, not tomorrow, today. Yesterday is done. I can learn from it, but I cannot live in it. Tomorrow is not mine yet. I can prepare for it, but I cannot control it. All I have is today. And at the end of the day, I surrender that day too. I give God the glory for the strength He gave me. Then I wake up and repeat. That might sound simple, but simple does not mean easy. Simple can be hard. Simple can be uncomfortable. Simple can require humility. Simple can require us to stop blaming everyone else and take responsibility for the next decision in front of us. And this is where self sabotage comes in. An addict can sabotage sobriety willingly and unwillingly. Willingly, We can choose to ignore warning signs. We can skip the meeting. We can stop calling the sponsor. We can hide things from the people who love us. We can romanticize the old life. We can keep one foot in recovery and one foot in the cycle. We can keep access to the very thing we say we want freedom from. But unwillingly, there are also deeper patterns working underneath the surface: trauma, fear, shame, old coping mechanisms, a nervous system that is used to chaos, a brain that feels safer with familiar dysfunction than unfamiliar peace. That is why some people can start getting better and then suddenly feel uncomfortable. Peace can feel foreign when chaos has been normal. Stability can feel threatening when instability is what you know. Healing can feel scary when brokenness has become your identity. So we overcomplicate it. We say, maybe I need a whole new plan. Sometimes you do, but sometimes you need to do the simple thing you already know you need to do. Call the person, tell the truth, go to the meeting, book the counseling appointment, pray, journal, get rid of the access point. Change the environment. Stop feeding the thought. Do not negotiate with the craving. Take the next right step. And then take the next one. Behavioral health teaches us that change happens through patterns, reinforcement, support, and repetition. Spiritually, I believe surrender opens the door for God to work in and through us. Those two things do not have to fight each other. For me, they work together. I can believe in counseling and still believe in prayer. I can believe in brain science and still believe in God's power. I can believe in accountability and still believe in grace. I can believe in personal responsibility and still believe that God gives strength when I do not have enough on my own. That is my recovery. That is my worldview. And I am not here to force that on anybody. But I am here to say this: whatever your worldview is, do not stay locked in a prison just because the door feels too simple. Sometimes the door to captivity is opened by truth. Sometimes it is opened by surrender. Sometimes it is opened by asking for help. Sometimes it is opened by admitting, I cannot keep doing this. And sometimes someone else helps you find the door, but you still have to walk through it. A counselor can help you see the pattern. A sponsor can help you stay accountable. A support group can remind you that you are not alone. A trusted friend can help you tell the truth. But you still have to choose. And I believe that choice happens daily. Not perfectly, daily. Recovery is not about waking up and pretending you are never tempted, never tired, never triggered, never discouraged, and never overwhelmed. Recovery is waking up and saying, today I choose freedom again. Today, I choose surrender again. Today, I choose accountability again. Today, I choose not to let shame drive the vehicle. Today, I choose not to make this more complicated than it needs to be. Because sometimes the complexity is just fear wearing a different outfit. Sometimes the overthinking is avoidance. Sometimes the explanation is an excuse. And sometimes the breakthrough begins when we stop asking, "Why am I like this?" and start asking, "What is the next right step?" Not the next 10 years, not the rest of your life. The next right step. That is one day at a time. That is recovery. That is rebuilding. That is liberty. And I want to speak to the person who feels stuck in addiction, stuck in a behavior, stuck in a process, stuck in a cycle, stuck in a mindset, stuck in shame. You are not beyond help. You are not beyond healing. You are not beyond restoration. The cycle can be broken. The pathway can be retrained. The door can be opened. And no matter your worldview, I believe there is something inside you that still wants freedom. Sometimes you just need someone or something greater than yourself to help bring it out of you. For me, that is God. He is the one who gives me strength. He is the one who helps me surrender. He is the one who helps me leave yesterday behind. He is the one who reminds me not to live in fear of tomorrow. And He is the one I give glory to at the end of the day. Not because I am perfect, not because I have it all figured out, but because I know where my strength comes from. So today, do not make freedom more complicated than it needs to be. Tell the truth, reach out, surrender, get support, take the next right step, and repeat. This has been On the Roll with Matt. If this spoke to you, share it with someone who needs to hear that the cycle can be broken. And remember, you do not have to solve your entire life today. Just choose freedom for today, one day at a time.